So, during the last kind of day class, Chris Wilson was saying that, suggestions for the UI would be welcomed. And, the panel there was kind of like, you got to fix the ultra wide screen issue or even just a larger screen issue. Even at a 38-inch monitor, it's getting pretty hard to deal with the UI. And as it's becoming more common for gamers to have 52-inch ultra wides, um, to play on for that, surround feeling and visuals, I could only imagine the nightmare it is to try and play PoE. So, but Chris was kind of like, we want to see what you guys think, and I thought, well, opportunity to see if I can maybe provide some direction. Is it the right direction? Wrong direction? No. Is it what I would love to see them do, or at least take a crack at, possibly? Yes. So, just wanted to kind of go over some of the elements of what the GUI would look like, uh, and thoughts on what I'd like to see maybe changed. For starters, we can tell that, to help with the ultra wide, everything needs to be center justified. Right now, it's left or right justified with your life or mana shoved way over here to the left or way over here to the right. Doesn't work. It needs to be pulled in together. Take the XP bar out of the middle, fit it in between the two. If you notice, it almost fits exactly perfect. Um, Players don't care how wide of this little bar they can see. We're gonna mouse over and figure out what the percentage is anyways. We don't really care about the bar, so it being tiny on some monitors isn't going to matter. This centralizes all of the information that we need in the base UI. So let's talk about auras. Because the next thing that we run into in standard or current UI is all of our buffs are just strewed across the top and they're shifting every 1 to 2 seconds, just bouncing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can't even tell what they are because the time you glance up to look, half of them have expired because they don't last more than 4 or 5 seconds. The other half that do last longer, because they're always on the left because they're not just auto constantly getting filled into the next queue slot on the buffs. So let's break them up to their functions. Auras. Auras are either on or off. We're not turning them on and off. The enemies don't really have a good mechanic for turning them on and off. It's not like they can, don't get any ideas, Chris. Disable auras or anything like that. So just put them here because all we want to know is are they on or are they off? And or if we're near a friend that's buffing us, okay, down here is where we really could care to see that information because it's either on or off. It's not changing. It's not dynamic. We just need to know which way the switch is. So that brings it up to player buffs. Don't put them across the top here. It's too hard to find. They're spinning in and out quickly. If I need to know anything that's impacting me, I want to be looking down here. I'm looking at my life to see where my life value is, so I know whether or not I need to hit a flask. I'm looking over here to see, why my guy's screaming I'm out of mana or can't do that yet. I don't want to look up here because the character is center screened. All the action is happening in this little area here. Everything else that's going on is, basically just non-tangible aspects. Yes, I'm shooting, I'm piercing, all the mobs over here are dying. They're 95% of the time not the thing that's hitting or killing me. Maybe if it's a strong range character, but usually not. The play is all happening in the center of the screen. That's where my character's moving. That's where I'm whirling dashing off to. Flame dashing, all in the middle. Keep the buffs in the middle. Keep them here centralized next to my health so I can see where and what my buffs are. So, debuffs on the enemy. Create a row at the top of the monitor. Center justified. It has the debuffs on the enemies. Now, I use buffs because I couldn't get the, mobs to stay alive long enough for me to kind of deal with that. Or, sorry. Couldn't get mobs to spawn enough debuffs. But player debuffs, top row. So if I'm being debuffed by something, just spill it across the top. Here it is. Once again, you'll see it's centered. Yes, this pushes the enemy node down a bit, the selected, this doesn't appear for 90% of us. Almost everybody has a move click nowadays that they're using. New players won't, but even then they're moving, they're walking, and when you're walking, you don't get this. So this is not going to show up unless you specifically left click on a monster and stop all other action. For the most part, you can get it to kind of come up if you left click, you're ranged, or you're dual striking or something, and you're just standing there. The second you go to move or select anywhere else on the screen, this goes away. So it's not really that much in the way of the UI, and obviously this could get scaled down some. Um, you know, I don't really need to necessarily know it's undead. Um, there's so few components in the game that affect enemy type. I mean, there's a handful like the Princess's Wish or something, take more damage from skeletons or something. If you can't tell what a skeleton is from the game itself, then the character models of skeletons need updated. If you can't really tell that it's an undead, zombie kind of thing coming at you, once again, character models or enemy models need updated, not a GUI. Scratch that layer, just keep what they're strong at. Resist elemental, that kind of stuff. So debuffs centralized. So as soon as okay, look, the Pale Guard is whacking me with all these debuffs. That makes sense. That works. I'm not scouring over here some layer that's shifting and basically looking more like a, Caesar feature over here in the corner as my buffs and debuffs are scrolling left and right and double stacking and multi-rowing. The whole debuff row could go across the screen. 90% of the players, unless they're playing on some really small monitor, should be able to squeeze all the debuffs across the top in one single row. Ailments. Next up. Okay, so fire, poison, lightning, cold, chill, freezing, sapped, all those. What they should really actually end up being is a gradient effect that starts from the edge of the monitor, and the stronger the chill or ignite, so let's say that it's an ignite that hits you, and it's just a minor ignite. You just see a small little red ignite kind of gradient fill around the edge of the screen. So you're fighting the Guardian that smacks you with an ignite that will kill you in 2 seconds. That flame is going to be a gradient over here towards the middle. That will tell me instantly visually by the monitor that I am engulfed in flames. I need to tap my fire potion or my anti-ignite potion. Or if I die to it, it's because I literally saw my screen turn red with fire. I know that that's what probably killed me. I don't have to try and look up here in the small little corner right here in the top to realize that there was a little flame icon that was moving back and forth as I was getting hit by other debuffs, that it was the ignite that killed me. I know the ignite killed me. Same for the poison. If the poison is super strong, the gradient strengthens, comes farther out towards the middle of the screen. More stacks. Same with bleeding. For chill, if it completely encases the screen, I'm frozen, which it's, you're not moving. Once again, if I see that my cold gradient is pretty much always in the middle of my screen, it's completely covered my screen, I am getting frozen too much, and that is why I'm dying. That is tangible feedback to new players that don't understand mechanics, because they can visually see that mechanic. It is simple, straightforward, easy to do. And, it kind of plays off some of the new, uh, you know, microtransactions we gotten. When something is a certain intensity, something in the game happens. Our magic resist are through the roof, so our magic cape is extremely longer. So if we can dynamically change our MTXs, I really hope we can dynamically change our GUI to put a gradient color or a gradient fire effect or poison lightning. Lightning can have little lightning bolts that shock around, and the bigger they are, the stronger your shock value is. Um, stuns can have little swirly lines as part of the gradient. Anything like that, just to kind of tell the player with a nice, easy gradient. And I know some people are complaining there's already too much flashiness on the screen. Are we going to be able to tell the gradients? It should be the layer overlaying. I think it'll be a lot better, a lot cleaner, and a lot more straightforward. So that's kind of where I'm thinking on the ailments. So potions. So we run into, actually, let me turn potions this way. So by default, potions should just have a shimmer or a kind of gradient that says they're either on or off. Once again, I'm looking here, I'm looking here, possibly here for timing, almost never. Really, this is just a block of programming for my buttons, but sometimes it's helpful to know that I hit my Q, but I really didn't get to go because I didn't have enough life to spend, so it didn't fire. Those kind of things. So I think this needs to stay. Potions don't need to be a buff icon. They just need to show what they're doing. The players should know what their potions are doing. They should have that idea. We don't need a 3.5 to 5, 6, or if you know you got Mage Blood and they're 8 out to 30 seconds of runtime. Buffs. By the time you can learn what your flask crafting means and the value of the flask crafting, you know what the flask is doing. We don't need a buff and an icon to show us that, you know, we have those things. What we do need to know is our flask effective or not, and how long. So, create a highlight when they're active and move the timers below the flask. All you got to do. Now, if we could possibly get the nice GUI from the Xbox and PlayStation, flask counter would not be bad, like number of charges. So we could, you know, see in our build how effective our charge building or charge generation actually ends up being. Um, all right. For potion debuffs, so you have times where things are blocking your potions or, you know, draining your potions, those kinds of things. Once again, a nice simple gradient over top of the potions to show that they're being affected. Doesn't have anything fancy. We just can quickly see, hey, why is my potions always empty? Oh, I'm standing in some potion debuff, or I have a potion debuff up here. Something's causing my potions not to function as normal. I don't need all the details about specifically what, just that it's happening. If I need to go figure it out, that's the kind of detail and level that the pro players know about, and the new players will go find or ask their friends about, like, hey, why do I keep getting this red box around my potions when I'm fighting this boss or when I'm fighting this certain kind of monsters? Oh, well, it's a block out of your potions. This is what happens. Trying to use the GUI to explain that, pointless. Because as soon as they know that one fact or they've learned that fact, they don't need to know the individual effects. They just need to know potions are happening to be debuffed. Same for mana. If you have a mana degen, so you're standing on Baron's, you know, mana absorbing, or you're in the new mana barrier or whatever it is, you know, Arch Nemesis mod, it's draining your mana and that's why you can't do anything. Just color the globe. Let us know that that's happening so we can go, oh, that's why I keep screaming I can't do anything. Alrighty, I need to step off. Okay, I stepped off the big white square. The little blue highlight goes away, and my mana returns. Hey, look, the new player learns the big white square drains their mana. Really easy. The GUI can tell them without needing an entire wiki to figure it out. The players can use the visual cues on the UI to determine that was bad, that's good, and the UI tells me when I'm in the two different states. That's all it needs to do. I don't need as much detail about what exactly is happening in those two states. I need to know GUI says good, GUI says bad. And then once they learn what those states are, the GUI doesn't need to be as complicated. It can be very quick and straightforward. This will help with experienced players, but I think it's going to help more with new players to the game. There's so much data overload on the screen than add in all the flash and MTXs and everything else in the universe and 5 million different, you know, things there. You just don't know what's going on. Simplify it. Quit trying to provide too much data, you know, and it'll actually provide more data. Everybody fusses. I want to know what killed me. What killed me? What killed me? Blah, blah, blah. How did I die? Okay, 95% of the times you're dying for a handful of reasons. You got ignited and didn't pay attention you were ignited, so you died. You got frozen, so you lost all of your attack, leech, you know, life on hit and all, and basically died because at that point your defense has failed because your defense is really regeneration of offense. Um, you got poisoned. You bled yourself to death with corrupting blood or bleed. 90% of the time, corrupting blood. Um, and let's see what else. Those are the weird ones, that you don't really expect. I mean, the one-shotting from, the fact that you're standing on 35, lightning strikes and there are, lightning call, and you don't realize it until all 35 hit you at one time, and you're like, huh, what happened? But even at that, you at least get a visual cue that, hey, there was 35 lightning strikes that just went off. Maybe I got hit by that. So those are by having this um elements set up with the gradients in place, you'll know all of the ailment stuff that's killing you, because that's 90% of what's killing you. You did not know because you did not see a little debuff icon up here in the top left that you've been burning and igniting for the last 2.5 seconds, and you haven't cleansed any, and your life is halfway down, and you haven't paid any attention to that, and then you get smacked by some big hit and you die because it takes half your life. Well, if I knew every time I approach this monster pack, I'm being ignited, poisoned, and shocked, and I can tell that with 3 or 4 layers of gradient, then I know tangibly right then and there that pack is a dangerous pack if I don't have my resist. And it'll also teach people the importance of resist. If they start running through the game, zero resist, playing through, and they realize that that fire hit or that ice hit is always in the middle, and then they get 35 cold resist, and that same monster is now, oh, it's just over here a little bit, it's not impacting me nearly as bad. Oh, look, I'm at max resist. Oh, right here. The number of times I've transitioned from story mode to mapping and didn't realize the impact. I mean, I've been playing the game for 7 years now, I think, but that transition for people when I'm trying to help new people learn the game, they don't understand the importance, and it's hard to explain or show them because we don't have damage records. We don't say, hey, look, got hit by that guy for 10 damage, you got hit by that guy for 110, because my resists are okay and yours aren't. They understand the concept of resist, they don't understand the impact. By having these be visually seeable, visually tangible with a gradient across the screen, you will know the impact of having those resist. Same for chaos. If you're taking tons of chaos degen, and chaos degen is eating you alive, if it's filling your screen with purple, you're gonna go, okay, yeah, that's what's killing me. Did not realize that's what's killing me. I should probably get some chaos resistance, because either the poison green or some chaos degen is just eating me alive. I should probably do that. Once again, the game's providing feedback without having to strip through a billion different things. It's already client side because the client needs to know it, because it's generating a buff icon to display, and it's taking the account of what that means to the player's motions and actions and everything. So the client already knows. So the data's there. It's telling the client what to do with that data. And then instead of generating a buff icon or a debuff icon here in the middle of nowhere land that nobody can keep up with, um, it needs to, be a gradient. If you can't do the gradient, then create a base slot set for the common debuffs. So let's say the first 10 slots on the debuff bar are always assigned to that debuff, and it's either on or off. So the leftmost debuff is always ignite. The next one is freeze, and next one's chill, next one's lightning. That way the base ones that always come up, always impact us, always are a nightmare to deal with, um, have them in a set spot, because then we can just visually glance and see with our peripheral vision. Our peripheral vision, while we're focused here in the middle of the screen, can see that the ignite button lit up. Okay, well, I'm ignited without having to look. The problem now is these swap around so much. I mean, a prime example of this buff, or these degens and stuff, is they constantly swap. They're never in a set order, because they're just trying to fill the next slot in the array. It's like, hey, here's your array of debuffs. Load the array of the debuffs, put it in there. As the timer falls off, take it out of the slot, next load the next debuff into the next array slot. I get it from a programming standpoint. It makes sense. From a UI standpoint, it is absolutely garbage. It doesn't work for the players. They need to either have static locations or meaningful visual feedback. And the current GUI has none of that. It is literally the mix of all the bad things that came about from limitations 20 years ago, 10 years ago in gaming, 15 years ago in gaming. I mean, that's the problem with the UI is the design concept, not the complexity. I mean, the UI is very complex. I am not going to, I mean, it provides a ton of feedback to the player. Probably a lot more than it really needs to play or to provide back to the player. But it does so in such a poor way that it's really hard for new players to understand any of it. It's annoying for veteran players because we're just frustrated that it's like, dude, you know, when we're lagging that last week or two of POE League, and we go look at other games that have said, you know what, we got to deal with some widescreens and we got to deal with a few other things. Let's centralize this GUI. Let's put it all in the middle. Let's try and provide some tangible feedback. And I think you could take the UI and really convert it into something that becomes industry standard, industry leading again. I don't know how hard that gradient is, but I'm going to ask for it because I always have the saying when it comes to things in IT or programming or anything in general, always ask because sometimes things that seem impossible are 2 button clicks, and some things that seem super easy are a billion button clicks. And hundreds of hours to get implemented. So I don't know if that's something, but I'm going to ask for it because it's what would separate the GUI apart from everything there. We would have that super tangible feedback. You see it in console games all the time. You get hit really hard, and the whole screen kind of does this big red hit, kind of, grading over top of you. We see it in the console games for the feedback because they're trying to get as much, they're dealing with that whole concept of large screen TVs that are 72 inches wide, and how do you make the player understand what just happened. They're dealing with kids that are 7 to 10, 15 years old that are trying to learn how to play video games, and how do they get the impact back. you know you look at Mario racing, you don't get a buff icon that you got oil dropped on your face when you're racing. No, what you get is this big splatter of oil right in the middle of the screen that says, hey, you're blind, you can't see. Now, they do that because that's exactly the actual debuff. But the point being, you know what happened to you without just having a little icon that says, hey, this part of your screen's black now. It's that tangible kind of feedback that the GUI needs to provide without as much details. I don't really care if this is lasting for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, and if it is, great. I mean, the only ones I guess is the ignite and the degen ones. The timer's slightly helpful because you can try and gamble. I don't have any potions. Can I stand here long enough to wear off that bleed before it kills me? But I better not take a step or it will. So I know the value to there, but really just simplify and solidify this. Like I said, these auras, they don't need to be in the mix of that array swapping. There's no point. um, those kinds of things. So just some overall feedback of where I think the UI should maybe go. It might not be the best. I didn't get the opportunity to really kind of do a lot of good gradient components or drawings to kind of really represent what I mean, but you can kind of get the feel. If I let me just kind of come in here real quick, see if I can pull this off. Let's see. Let's pretend we're gonna be burning a lot. Um, sorry. So I wanted to drive home this whole gradient thought. So, a small burn would kind of look, like this maybe. And then as we got to a heavy ignite, kind of looks a little bit more like this, and this is not opaque enough, but you get the point. It kind of starts filling in here. And if we're pretty much burning to where we're going to die in a few, just, 2 seconds or so, because it's dumping out, 2,000 damage, it should kind of be like this on the gradient. And then if we were to, kind of look at what cold, this is a heavy chill. Imagine this was blue. This is a blue heavy chill, and if we were frozen, this is kind of what the gradient would look like for frozen. I know I am frozen. So just kind of what I was trying to explain with on the gradient kind of component so that there's tangible feedback. The other thing, if we're worried about what it means to overlay too many gradients, is possibly we do fire in one corner and it kind of spreads out from one corner, cold from down here maybe, and it spreads out from a corner, our shock values out of here, and our chaos, poison, degen values from over here, and kind of do it that way as a means to, and maybe bleed comes here and goes down this way, because we're bleeding. There's options to do, regionalized so they're not so, because sometimes you can be hit with all 7 of them. You usually get to the death screen pretty quick that way. When it happens, and then you fuss about arch nemesis mods. But just kind of what I'm thinking would be much more user impactful, much better at training new players to the game so they better understand what's going on with the UI, and a lot better generalized feedback. Because right now we're living off these tiny little icons that aren't much bigger than this that randomly change in and out at 100 miles an hour. That's all the feedback we got about what's going on with our characters from a real-time perspective. So what we do is we literally make builds that we don't actually look or care what our character is doing. So we can literally just basically spend our entire build time looking here and looking here to see what's going on with our life. This is the 2 spots in the entire game that we spend looking, because none of this actually matters to us for the most part. It's the debuffs and that. Well, if I could shift those to the middle, I could enjoy the game a bit better. So, anyways, kind of starting to get to a rambling point. Hope you liked the video. If so, leave comments. Hopefully, get to try and get some of this to, um, grinding gear. Maybe we can get some traction and get a better UI that fixes some of our issues. And like I said, I don't know if this is perfect, but it's some thought generation tools. And well, Chris asked for us to send him some, so I've decided it's time to send him some. Remember to like and subscribe. I kind of stepped away from YouTube a bit, but I'll be coming back with some stuff now that some personal things are out of the way. I want to start going back to streaming and posting videos again about PoE. It's a great game. It's wonderful. I think the devs really have a great sense of what's going on. I think they just get into these brick wall concepts and they can't get past them. So the more we can provide meaningful feedback, the more I think they'll be able to provide us with meaningful things to that we won't. And I've seen them do that. We're getting a lot of quality of life stuff. Now, whether that's because the devs are just sneaking in behind Chris's back and he doesn't know until it's too late and they can't remove it because it's tied out to a headhunter buff, I don't know. But we're getting a lot of quality of life that really the game has needed for a long time. And the GUI getting an update is probably the biggest quality of life grinding gear games could give the players. It's just outdated. It needs a new overhaul. And if we can't get it in PoE 1, I understand. There could be a million different components to it that just prevent it from happening. For the love of God, please, please do something with the GUI in PoE 2 then. And that's it. Appreciate it.